Hello, everyone. How are you all this lovely morning? I just wanted to say welcome, everybody. Välkommen for all our Swedish friends. And tack så mycket for joining us this morning. So it's
good morning.
Lovely to have you all join us today. We're just going to wait for a few other people to come in, jump in, and we're going to get going. So hi, Jennifer Gallard. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we appreciate you being here. If everybody wants to say hi, you're welcome. And just remember to give permission if you just so we can see your comments and everything. If you give permission, so you can see here. I've got Francene there. Hello, John and Audrey. Her names come up. And then I think over here, I've got, I think this is Jenny Gallard, but obviously her comments aren't coming up because you might not have given Facebook your permission. So there you go.
It's pretty easy. You just click through to StreamYard and you just go, yes, you can share information, and then they'll show you on the comments. I also can use my phone, and I can see that Marie Berents is with us. Good morning, Australia. Actually, it's good evening in Australia, isn't it? It's good morning from us. Desi Dolberg is watching. Hello to you. Michelle Fredericks. Francene says she loves the colour of your cardigan. Very nice.
Thank you. Is it the colour because of what it means, Francene? So
yeah, you dream interpret long enough, you start to see the prophetic symbolism in just about everything.
I do. I spend a lot of time. If that was in a dream, I spend a lot of time going around. I don't know if anybody else does this, but I always go like, if that was in a dream, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
And often we see people doing a thing, and I'm like, if that was in a dream, that would be an interesting dream symbol.
We even our son Ethan, he watched the new Disney movie, the Disney Pixar movie, which we watched with Sophie and talked through with her. And we were saying there were some things about it. We're like, what about that? You might want to think about that. And one of the things I said to him is like, look, if somebody had a dream and that's what they dreamt, like, what would that be? And it was like, it wouldn't be so good, would it?
Yeah. Anyway, so this morning we're
Renee is with us as well. Good morning, Renee.
Renee, thank you so much for joining us. I think Renee is joined us because she actually still joins us, and she goes from her phone while she's on the road. So we really appreciate you joining us, Renee. She says good morning as well. Francene says it's just a color she loves. So somebody has said good morning. I'm not sure who that is. Just have a look.
Ramona Fredericks.
Oh, hi, Ramona. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Carol Benedell has said good morning as well. So that's cool.
Now, look, John, let's just do a thing quick, because we are going to talk about body, but I noticed that we dropped some of the interpretations of dreams. So while we're waiting for people to come in a little bit, let us go have a look at some of the dreams Francene sent us, and Renee Eber, and then there was some other. Maria Bevan had sent us a dream, and I say tack så mycket. I'm learning Swedish. I just felt led to learn Swedish. I felt God say, just go learn Swedish. So I'm learning Swedish. So I'm struggling a bit, but I think I'm enjoying it, and it's very interesting. But that's why I said tack så mycket. I've got to practice somewhere. So we didn't interpret some of the dreams, and it's kind of to do with legs, because we spoke about legs last week.
Yeah.
And arms and stuff like that. So let's jump right in, and let's interpret some of these dreams that we hadn't done last time, and then we can get on, because we've got a lot of teaching to do today. So we'd like to just have a chance to just get through it, and then we'll chat a bit later. So it says here Maria's watching. Maria, I hope you got my greeting you in Swedish, going God morgen, välkommen, and tack så mycket for being here. And so we've also got one of your dreams, and Heather said hi as well, so she's joined us. Thanks for joining us, and blessings. Hi everyone, blessings. Fantastic, thank you. Let's go look. Okay, look. So Francene sent us a dream. We're just going to cover a little bit about the dreams that we hadn't covered last week, and then we'll greet some more people, and then we'll get on to the teaching. So Francene sent us a really interesting dream. She said, I dreamt of having an awareness that underneath a woman's long skirt, she had steel rods instead of legs due to a congenital growth deformity. No one else saw what I did. Well, I mean, I can absolutely confirm that this is probably most likely a prophetic dream. I suspect that God started, and I don't know what's gone on lately, but recently I've just had a lot of prophetic dreams. I've been going into places and seeing things, and when I wake up, I know the dream is not for me. I know the dream is about something else that God's been giving me. So I suspect that this is a prophetic dream that you've had, Francene, and it's relevant. So do you want to chat to the dream? Because I think you had some really good ideas.
Yeah, no, just briefly, it's steel rods instead of legs underneath the woman's long skirt. So I suspect you're dreaming about somebody you know. And there are several things going on here. We said legs are to do with walking and standing. There's an Ephesians 6 root for that, but it's through the word. And instead of a leg of flesh, there is a steel like a steel construction or a steel rod, which steel and iron often speak to human strength. Because they're kind of man-made, you have to get them out of the ground, you have to refine them, you have to shape them into something. And so this woman has these steel rods instead of legs. If I read that correctly, it's not like she's had a surgery where they've been put in. They're instead of legs, and it's due to a congenital growth deformity, but it's under her skirt. So you can't see it. It's under her covering, whatever's covering her. So she looks like she's standing normally, and she looks like she's walking normally, but it's actually a strong human construction, not the life of God, that's doing it. And it's to do with a congenital growth deformity, which means it's something that probably runs through her family line. But I think the implication of this is that she needs to be healed. There's a healing that needs to take place, and
reconstruction
and a regrowth. It's actually a creative miracle of an organic growth instead of a human construction. So what would that be? That would be for somebody to receive the life of God in their walking and standing, rather than just doing it out of a human-made strength. So that's how I would speak to that one. And just interestingly, the reason that you're dreaming this, so the reason it's not for you is because God speaks to you through dreams. So it's not just a manufactured thing that you've got. So because you're having the dream, it can't really be about you because of what the dream says about the person, if you understand what I mean.
Also, it depends on if she knew the person, if she recognized the person, or if she didn't recognize the person.
That's right.
So that's a very interesting dream, and I'm sorry we didn't get to it last time, but we thought we'd chat about that because legs are all about your walk. Then it was really interesting because Renee Eber sent me a question of what would it mean if someone dreams of a hole in the middle of your foot. You can literally see right through it. And so I said, oh, just a bit of context. And she said she dreamt she was sitting on her bed with a hole in her foot and she could see right through through the middle of the foot, and she kept looking at it and was truly shocked. So this is an interesting dream because I suspect it wasn't recent. I suspect you're probably at that stage. So this was my take on the dream: is you had probably I don't know if anybody knows that expression. I shot myself in the foot. And often that's what happens sometimes when we have a powerful speech. Often prophetic people can have powerful words and powerful speech, but it's kind of self-inflicted because what happens is you're trying to work out how to work this gun, or the safety catch is not on, and that's often with our words. And then sometimes we say stuff and we shoot ourselves in the foot, and it's a difficult situation that ensues, and it kind of hinders our walk for a period. But I believe God was at that time bringing clarity or a light into what was happening in your situation. It also depends on which foot it was. Was it your left foot or your right foot? but and if it was your left foot, it would hinder what you're born and called to do, and if it was your right foot, it would hinder your faith and strength. You'd have trouble walking. So it's never a bad thing when God sheds light on the thing. When we have a dream about a thing, and we see a thing in a dream, it's often because God's just trying to shed light. And I've got some interesting stuff to say about light and eyes, which we'll talk about a bit later.
Just to add two other little details to that dream. So, yeah, the context is you're sitting on the edge of your bed, so it's in the place of intimacy, and you're awake, you're sitting, so you're in your authority, in your intimate space, and you can see clean through it. So actually, this thing has become very transparent to you. Like it's obvious. You're shocked, right? So that's your response. It's obvious, and you're shocked, and that's great, because that means in your place of intimacy, you're going to be dealing with this thing, and there's going to be a healing and a greater awareness. And if it is about your words going off, the gun going off accidentally, then a greater level of self-control in speech. It's up for anybody prophetic, even involved in dream interpretation, releasing interpretations. It's really critical to be in control of what you say, how you say, and when you say it.
Yeah, really good. So yes, so Renee has said she had that about 5 years ago. So I don't know if that kind of speaks to what was happening in your life at that time. And that's usually what we would do, is I would go back and look at dreams. Like we've recently been doing that, looking at dreams in 2021 and what was going on at the time, because that also helps you understand what God was saying to you at the time and actually what the dream meant. And so it's really good. So then Maria Bivan also had an interesting dream about
this is a really good one.
She had boots on totally the wrong way, and she did not see it herself in the dream, and she was cycling with a heavy luggage on the back, and she cycled from the place where she grew up, and I was about to fall on the hill and the curve, but managed to keep up the pace. Suddenly I hear a voice calling out my name, and a determined voice, and I stop, and the supervisor and teacher from my school arrives, and he tells me to look at my shoes and how they are on my feet. I look down and see how the heel of the shoes is at the front and the front of the shoes at the back. I take them off, and I realize the way that they're on now the way they should be. And she did not understand how she could walk so well and how her feet could have been so uncomfortable. So that's a really, really good dream of God really shedding light on a thing. And I will tell you, when we talk about ears, about how God in a dream had spoken to me. I heard his voice as well, and I suspect this is God bringing to your attention, and it could have actually been through somebody who who is a teacher, but if you want to just give a quick overview of what she's dreaming there, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So this is talking about bicycle is a vehicle, right? So it's a bit like in the same category as a motorcycle or a car, but it's just for one person, which is you, Maria. And it's something you've been doing probably since your early life, because you talk about leaving your childhood home. But it's been hard work to pedal this vehicle, well, whatever it is. It could be your sense of personal ministry, actually. And you have got to a place where it's hard work. You're going uphill, so we know that's like where it's hard work going uphill, and you're kind of going round a curve, which could mean a change of direction. In English, we also have a saying, I'm going around the bend, which means like the thing is so frustrating it's driving me crazy, which so you've got difficulties kind of in two areas of riding this thing. And then you get this clear voice, and we'll talk about that, but it says it's a teacher from school. I was reading this again over the weekend. You will call, Jesus says, you won't call anybody teacher, and you won't call rabbi, actually. It says you won't call anybody rabbi or teacher, because Father will teach you directly.
You'll be taught of the Lord.
And you'll be taught of the Lord. So often a teacher is the instructive aspect of God speaking out to you. Then we get to the feet, right? Feet that are on the pedals that are making this whole thing move around. And you realize that there's this kind of impossible wearing your shoes backwards. And so we think then again about the shoes as being that which covers your feet, right? And there's something the wrong way round about this. Again, I kind of go back to, I went back to Ephesians 6 in this, the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace, peace being completeness and wholeness. So it's the knowledge that we are made whole in Christ gives us a readiness to do the things that God asks us to do. But there's something the wrong way around, and it probably has come from your childhood, because that's where you've left. It could be something to do with, a common one is we think we have to do things to be accepted by God. But that scripture is saying, no, actually, we need to realize our acceptance by God, and that gives us the readiness to walk and stand. So I'm not saying it is that, but it could be something like that, which is the thing that's the wrong way around. But the great news is you've been told what the thing is, and you just completely enjoyed the transformation in your spiritual life. So you'll know there will have been a moment where you go, I've got that thing. I know who I am in God. And now peddling this thing is like easy. And he'll have given you a prophetic word or scriptures or both of those things, which will have convicted you that in your relationship to him, there's this freedom, which just makes it like really easy.
And then, I kind of feel like it's that sense of entering into God's rest. It's like when we walk in life and we don't have to pedal so hard, and we don't have to, it's less difficult. And God brings a breakthrough. So it's a really good dream. So I wanted to and let's do this one because we do need to press on because it's 15 minutes gone. Yandi and Kwasi had a really interesting dream about boots as well.
So let's get into this one. This is also a boots dream. I recently had a dream. I was also wearing very nice boots. They were very colorful, and my husband was saying how much they suit me. And it's like we're at the shop, and the people in the shop were also complimenting me as I was trying these boots on, fitting them and walking in them. And when I woke up, I had a really good feeling about this dream. So what do you think's happening there?
I think it's a really positive dream. And I think that in a sense, God has actually given her kind of a new mantle for her feet. They probably, they're colorful boots, but boots are really good shoes to dream about because they're really the right boots the shoes to help you walk in, to hike in, to do long distance walking, and they protect your ankle, which means your walk doesn't wobble about. So basically I felt in a sense it was like the Technicolor dream coat of Joseph's is that God was actually giving you a new mantle for your feet and your walk, and actually people were going to see it and really see you and compliment you, and actually there was going to be a favor with God and with man. And actually I felt like your husband might have been God going, that really suits you, but it could actually be your husband in real life saying, wow, that really is amazing, and you're just going to get favor with God and favor with man. So I feel that that's what that dream is speaking about.
Yep, that's a really good dream.
So well, this is, we have a few others, but maybe we'll get those afterwards. But let's start looking again at the different parts of the body. We spoke last week about some, but we kind of went a bit back to front in a sense. And we spoke about the heel first and the foot. But I just thought we'd start at the top again. Actually, just shall I greet a few? Anne-Marie's joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. And also just on the interpretation of the dreams, Francene said, I had a dream with the steel rods while I was in my previous church, and yes, I could see a lady who was moving in her own strength. So that's great. Thank you guys for helping us understand that this kind of sits in your spirit as correct. Thank you, John and Audrey. Yes, it was what I was going through, says Renee, at the time. So, and I appreciate you guys giving your feedback. So yes, sorry about that. I did digress a little bit, but it's nice to have be able to kind of see people's feedback. So a head's an interesting one.
Yeah, let's think about what a head would mean in a dream. If it's the focal point of a dream, something involving the head.
Yes. So, what we're going to try and do here is what I've been doing is looking up the Hebrew words of things. And so head, rosh, is actually in the Hebrew lexicon, and actually it's one of the Hebrew letters, which is really interesting. So these body parts are interesting. So if you have a combination of Hebrew letters and the head's in it, it usually would mean a thing. And so the combination of a head and a staff, or a head and a crown of thorns, we were talking about that authority or leadership that leads with the thorns, is a chieftain or captain, and that's
power and law.
And law. And then the one is one who walks among the people, and that's a king,
a shepherd king,
right? A shepherd king.
Yeah.
So these are all really interesting and important symbols. So now, if you dream about a head, what are you dreaming about? We always look at the Hebrew. We try and understand what Bill and Thompson said. We go look up what they mean, actually.
Yeah.
And then what we also do is we think about our dreams or other people's dreams. And so I would love it if you could just have a little
a little riff on what a head means. So I mean, you think about what the way we use head is where we have our thoughts. We use it in our culture. We associate our heads with thinking. We also we have a play on words, like the head of an organization. So clearly this head has to do with authority, and that does go back to the Hebrew root resh, which you were talking about, which is the picture of it actually used to represent a head. So it would be an authority or a leader, but also the beginning or the first of a thing. So if you the head was seen as the way things started, and I think that's probably to do with God as the creator of the universe. He's kind of the head, the first of creation. So the head as in thinking, head as in the authority or the first. Obviously, because when we think about the authority or the first, we think about God as the one who has authority, Jesus Christ as the first, as our pattern, yeah, that's right. And we can think about leadership, and also the first, like if you are the first in line for something, it means you're the next to be able to receive it. So it could be to do with a blessing.
And actually in Hebrew, like the head of, it's not the mouth of a river, it's actually the head of a river. So that's also like the Hebrew word for head is about the head of a river.
Yeah.
So now I just wanted to I know, humor me here, people, but I'll share basically the Hebrew is that over there, which is resh or rosh, and it's the head of a man. It's about the chief, the first, the top. So I just thought I'd share that with you, so you could also see. I don't know if it helps make sense for people, the Hebrew of it. And then I think this next one is also about resh and head. So if you want to have a look back at the live stream and pause it there, then you can go have a look at kind of what the ideas about head and headship and all that stuff was.
Yeah.
But it is the chief, the top, and so it's all very interesting. But now let's have a look a bit at maybe some of the dreams we've had that are involving head, because you have had quite a few dreams about heads. And do you want to share some of that?
Yeah, I'll go through just very, very quickly. This is not the whole dream. This is just the relevant part of it. I dreamt that I was in a hot, dry, almost like an African savanna kind of a place, but it was very open. And I was in a sort of a zoo or an animal park. And I remember seeing an elephant's head stuck in the V of a tree. And I wondered if it was actually the elephant or the tree. I kind of couldn't, you get those trees which grow out like really, really wide. And you certainly do in Africa. And I kind of looked at it twice and I thought, is that an elephant stuck in a tree? Or is it just a tree that's grown a funny way that looks like an elephant stuck in a tree? But then the elephant moved and I knew it was actually the animal. So that's an interesting one.
Because elephant is also the word for strength.
Yes.
Actually, in elephant, it's a tree is also can be strength, and so it's speaking also about strength, something about head and also strength.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's I kind of took it to be talking about the tree is often associated with leadership, and there was this strength But an elephant is a bit like a whale is in the spirit. An elephant is on land. It's like it's a big thing. So there could be a big issue or a big thing which is perceived as a strength, and somehow it's stuck in this leader. And that's like not a good thing. And it's the head that's stuck. So it's maybe something to do with thoughts about this as being a strength or not a strength, or the consequences of it is stuck. And I kind of wondered, I looked at this leader and thought, is this just the leader or is this the issue? And then the thing moved and I realized actually it's an elephant in a tree. It's not just a tree. So it is an issue that this leader has, which means you can kind of, you know, if you're really able, you can unstick that elephant from that tree and it'll be able to go and wander on its way. So that's an interesting one about a head. I had another dream where somebody was shot in the head with arrows. And that would be a verbal attack on somebody's thinking. I think it was near their eyes. So it may be something to do with thoughts about the prophetic. Because we'll come to eyes later, but the eyes can talk about the prophetic and the way you see things. So it's that was to do with several shots going to the head of this person, and it was by a mob boss in the dream. So it wasn't a good person really who was it was a false leader who was doing this thing that I was witnessing. But it actually revealed that the person who got shot was a robot. They weren't even a real person. So whatever that thing is that's doing the talking is like a synthetic manufactured thing. It's not even the God that's doing the talking. So I kind of then had to think about what that might relate to. But there's another thing about head, but in terms of thoughts.
And that's interesting because you could see her neck was made from some kind of white synthetic material.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Nancy Brown shares a thing about a neck, and we'll have a look at that a bit later. But the neck, could you explain what the neck is then, if it relates to the head? Because it is attached to the head, isn't it?
I mean, a neck, it can be kind of two things. It can be the place that turns the head and supports the head. So it's often like a supporting role, but it's influential. So it can be like a second in charge or somebody like that. And we'll come on to, maybe we'll get onto this later, maybe we won't. But necks are often seen associated with necklaces. And a necklace is usually to do with delegated authority. Think of Joseph. Pharaoh gives him a necklace, and in the ancient Near East, the necklace was the sign that you had the delegated authority of Pharaoh. Or it's to do with adornment and becoming attractive. You know, if you see somebody twizzling a necklace I'm like twizzling a necklace like this, then they're trying to get your attention to them. But you know, that's kind of that cue in our social lives, and so it can be to do with adornment and kind of I want to get your attention and I want you to look at me, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
But also could be a stiff-necked people, because God says they are a stiff-necked people. That means he can't even turn their head. It's like their neck's like fixed in a point, in a position. They will not see the thing God wants to turn their head to or bring their attention to.
That's true. So in the negative, that's part of the head turning.
Yeah.
You know, a good advisor, a second in charge or support of the head will turn the head and say, you really need to think about this. This is important for what you're trying to do. But like if you're stiff-necked, then that's bad. And like you said, that comes through in Scripture a lot.
And actually, thanks for sharing this, Francene. She had a dream about doing surgery on the head of a decapitated bull. Now, this is very interesting because decapitation means you're cutting the authority off of a thing. So if in a dream you've had a snake come and lie to you, I suppose this is probably what Eve should have done if she had only just thought of this. If she should have just decapitated the serpent. She should have cut its head off and its authority off, and it would not have been able to. And so if you cut a head off or you decapitate a thing, it loses its ability to think, speak, move the rest of the body. And actually, it's interesting because a bull speaks about strength. Again, it's a very similar thing to an elephant, and it speaks about a strong authority. And so you'd had a thing of a decapitated head of something that was lying to you many years ago. I can't remember the details of that dream, but when you a good thing is if in a dream you can decapitate a head. Our son had a dream about there was a lie that kept coming back at him about relationships. He had a very strong sword, and he basically slit it right through the head and half, and he cut it into two pieces. And actually God's been bringing a victory in that area of his life. So he's seen it. We've been able to give him the words to well, he actually just slit the thing in half, but decapitation, it speaks about severing the authority of that thing to speak into your life or have any authority over you. So
also, is that when you finish?
So that's what I think Francene is dreaming about. Is I'm just interested that she's doing surgery. I think what you were probably trying to do is there might have been a strong leader who lost their they'd lost their authority, and you doing surgery, I suspect you were trying to figure out what had gone wrong, what the leader had done, or what exactly it was that he'd done that had caused that to happen. I'm not sure if that's exactly it, but maybe you can speak to it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's about, I like what you say. It's about strength. It's about leadership, and a bull. But often they're very dangerous if they're not restrained. And we've seen dreams where unrestrained bulls cause enormous damage in people's lives. It's abuse of authority, basically. Is one of the representations.
Yes.
And that links to the other aspect of a bull, which is bulls of Bashan. They're demonic, right? They can be false gods. Very powerful false gods. So the good thing is decapitation is getting rid of the authority. One of the other aspects of that, one of the sort of technical aspects, is you cut the life off from the ability to think. The stomach and the heart are like, that's what provides us with life. They're food, energy, and blood. And decapitation separates the two. So doing the surgery will be depending on what surgery you were doing.
Well, she said we were curious to see what was inside and how it worked.
So there you go.
That's very interesting.
This is looking at an idea set that you're examining. It has no power over you. It's got cut off from its source of life. But that is a thing you do an autopsy. People do autopsies, right? And it's good to, when you have, when something is dead and gone, it is good to really understand it, because God will use you to help other people overcome that thing in their lives. My dream was I had a pig's head. And the pig had a forked tongue, and I'd cut it off and I was carrying it around, and that's like it's
unclean thoughts, isn't it?
Like it's an unclean demonic thing, and the forked tongue is lies. It talks two ways, you know. So, but it's good. It's a good dream because it's like it's done.
Was severed.
It's severed from its source of life.
So that's good. That's the thing. If you can sever the head of the thing, if it comes in a dream, and it's sort of weird because I've started in my dreams actually interacting with my dreams and knowing I'm in a dream and interpreting things within the dream. I don't know if anybody else has had that. I think Francene, you might have mentioned you'd had that. So it's very interesting. So let me just do some comments here. Renee Eba says the elephant could speak to a large problem, also to manipulation, she says. And she says the stiff-necked is not flexible for God.
Yes.
So thank you for your thoughts. We appreciate you sending your thoughts, actually. So so that's very interesting. I don't know if everybody has any other questions about heads, but it's a very interesting dream element. And if you think about the Nebuchadnezzar dream, it was the first thing he sees on that statue is the gold head, which represents him. And that was the beginning. So that it was actually speaking about the beginning of these earthly kingdoms that God was showing. He was the start of that.
He was the start of a succession of earthly kingdoms. Exactly.
Yeah. So we also Renee, Psalm 22:12. Yeah, if you just send us what that is that the stiff-necked people? I'm not quite sure what it says, but if you just tell us what that's all about, that'd be fantastic. Let's get on to I. So I is really, really interesting because an eye is actually one of the the symbols, and I will probably bring it up. But an eye is to see, perceive. It's a soul revealed, or it's God's eye. I had a really interesting dream about catching God's eye. And but I'm like that. I just want his attention, and I'm always trying to go, you know, I'm God's favorite. I always say that to John. I always tell him I'm God's favorite daughter in the whole world. And Sophie says, oh, I'm God's favorite. But so that's what an eye could be about, is also trying to catch God's attention. And there's a scripture that says, I will guide you with my eye. Right. And that's a very personal thing. So do you want to tell us a bit about Matthew 6:22? Because I've put that there. And it's a really interesting scripture about the eye.
Yeah, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. So we often talk in English about, in our language, about the eyes being the gateway to the soul, or and it comes from this scriptural. That actually comes from this scripture, and it was kind of weird. We were walking around Canterbury, a town that's really a few miles away from us here, on Saturday, and it was really weird. I was just led to as I walked, I'd gone off to get something at one shop. Also gone off to get something at another shop.
So you went to get the bird seed.
I went to get the bird seed.
I went to get the birthday present.
So and I was looking around at people, and I was just looking at their eyes, and I could see in their eyes and the way their eyes moved, like I just kind of like, I could see things about them, actually. I understood it, and I could like, okay, I know how this person is like interacting socially. I know how this person feels about themselves because of what their eyes are doing, and there is that sense of, that we can do that, and so there is that sense of, if you look into the eye, you can tell whether there's light in that person or whether there's dullness and darkness. One of the tests of, am I talking to somebody demonic in a dream, is often their eyes are like just flat and dull. I had a dream where I was terrible. I'd gone a long way up in a building, like a very big central staircase in around 4 walls, where you kind of walk up around the 4 walls on the stairs. There was a group of young men at the top with this woman in a beige coat, and she looked at me like I was supposed to do what she said, but I wasn't going to do what she said. And then one of these guys these young men that were hanging around her, she just picked him up and threw him down over the staircase, about four floors, like to the bottom, and then looked at me like, if you don't do what I say, this is what I'm going to do to you. And her eyes were completely black, like no pupils, no irises, no whites, just completely black. And I know that that's a demonic thing, right? I mean, that's clear. But there are other ways that looking into somebody's eyes in a dream can indicate what's going on. You had a dream about yellow eyes, didn't you?
Yes. Oh, it was such a weird dream. I'd gone into this place. We were leaving to pack up and everything, and I was trying to leave, but I was speaking to this guy, and he just started manifesting all these demons. And the first demon he manifested was yellow. His eyes just went all yellow. And I cast that demon out in this dream, honestly, these dreams. And then his eyes changed to another color. Don't think I remember what it was, but I cast in that instance, I cast that demon out, and then I saw his eyes change again, and then I cast that demon out of him, and then he was like, his eyes were light again. But it was a dream about seeing something that was demonic and being able to perceive it in the eye. And it's interesting because the word for order and light are the same thing. And it's when God brings light. Actually, the Hebrew word for light is or, and
it's the first syllable of order, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
Order. And it's actually when God brings his light and he sheds his light on in a situation, and he is the Father of light, and we are children of light. We carry his light and his life inside of us. And so for me, it was that sense of that I could see what was going on in his eyes, and there was no light in his soul. And so and that's the thing about light that's really interesting, is it does bring order, and it actually is related to order. When God sheds his light on stuff, there is order. So that was the sense of that dream, is where eyes mean where eyes in a dream can show you what's in the soul, or to perceive what's in the soul. And it is a very interesting picture. I'll show the Hebrew lexicon of that in a minute, if I can figure out how to bring it up, because I've got a lot of stuff here. I've made everything a bit busy. And also, I don't know if anybody's dreamt about iPhones, That's interesting.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
know, like iPhones are very interesting dream element as well. You know, trying to go on your iPhone, trying to phone. I've had trying to phone you,
Yeah.
but I know it's a situation where I've been trying to get hold of God to get His attention to help me understand or perceive a thing. So
I think it's I mean, we have, you know, disclosure, we have Apple phones, we have iPhones, and not Android or another brand of phones. And so obviously, if you, depending on the phone that you have in real life, will depend upon the meaning. And I've had dreams about mobile phones where it's actually just been about the communication or an application and not about the brand. But if you are dreaming specifically and somehow the brand seems to be important, or you have an iPhone and somebody's trying to give you a different phone and get you to swap phones, then that can be to do with a play on words. It's like your prophetic communication.
And so, as Renee says here, that's really interesting because she's saying the yellow could be a spirit of jealousy. And so it's relevant, actually, what color you see in a dream. And Heather Lamont actually says she's seen this in the natural.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, I mean, I have as well. I actually saw a demon manifest in a girl many years ago. And it was such an interesting dream, and her whole face changed.
This was an experience, not
it was
a dream.
An actual experience, and her eyes and everything changed. So the color of eye in a dream is important, because I've had dreams about young children with brown eyes, and I was interacting with some young children with brown eyes, and you were saying, I think you had thoughts on what brown would mean.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, especially when it's kind of young children, I often associate brown as being it's just like a natural sight. So, and that would correlate with children being in a state of like a lower level of maturity, and often when you are younger in the faith, and just because you haven't walked as far with God, it's not a criticism, and we're all like, we have areas of our life where we're more in the natural than we see spiritually and hear spiritually, but it would be, to me, it's like they're people who are at a lower level of a childlike level of maturity, and they just see things more naturally. So it's not even a criticism. No. It's actually more just to do with a statement of where you are in your walk with God.
Young children, they have,
and in an area, it could even be in an area that relates to.
And it could be innocence, though, because brown eyes and children. I love children's eyes. I love looking into children's eyes because they're so innocent.
Yeah,
you know, there's just such a beautiful innocence about them, and I love that. And so for us, eyes are really important. And so that's to do with, you had an interesting dream. I really just need to get myself sorted, because red eyes are anger, but you dreamt about a misty eye and a pink eye.
Let's take it to the max here. And I'm not making this up. I actually had this dream. So I was in a room with I think I said 3 older people. I mean, that's what I've got. The one woman had a misty eye, and another woman had a pink eye. She was very overweight. There was some kind of contraption in the room, which I knew was designed to illustrate how bad smoking is. I told her that it was so, that like, yeah, I know smoking's bad for you, right? You don't need to tell me about that. But she kind of just brushed it off. Audrey was in the corner of the room on a square cabinet, sitting cross-legged and kind of actually just meditating and praying. As I got up to go back over to her, I felt an oppressive presence in the room. And as I stepped towards Audrey, I actually started floating up towards the ceiling. I couldn't even get traction on the ground. I was like suspended in the air. It was as if someone were lifting me up in the dream, and I knew that this was wrong. I felt as if I was being a bit tickled under my arms, but I couldn't come down. I started speaking against it in the name of Jesus. And then I woke up, and I woke Audrey up in real life. And I was speaking in tongues in our bedroom. And that was the dream. And this is somehow, like, warfare dreams actually happen this way for me.
Well, he did wake me up, and I wasn't happy. I think I slapped him and said, "I'm trying to sleep here." I don't like being interrupted. I like sleeping. But So it's interesting because I had a thought on that when we were chatting about this the other day, and I had not seen this before. A misty eye is actually a cataract in your eye, which is something that develops as you use in your eye, and you've had an infection in your eye previously, that it could actually, your eye tries to protect itself by a cataract. And I actually think that's what you were dreaming of. This one woman who, I think I know who we were talking about. She's prophetic, but one of her eyes is, did you know if it was her left or her right eye?
I can't remember.
It's interesting.
I think it might have been a right eye.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's my intuition about it.
Okay, so she had a misty eye, which is also it's an age, a disease of age, and as we go on in age, things don't function in the body correctly, and so I think it could be about that. The interesting thing is a pink eye is actually an infection. It's a bacterial infection that gets in your eye, and I think. Is that what it looked like? Pink eye, or did she just have a pink eye at the center?
No, it was like it was a pink eye. It was a bit like conjunctivitis,
yes.
But it was like there was no white. It was all kind of an even pink.
Yes,
you know?
And so that's what I feel like it was talking about. They're both prophetic people.
Yeah.
And one had an eye infection, so she couldn't see stuff because you can't see stuff. And one over the period had kind of their eye had become misty just from life, I guess, and things and experience in life. And so that's what I think it was talking about. I don't know if you.
We've got an interesting comment here from Renee as well, that where she says that pink eyes could speak to fleshly acts or desires. I think that's possible in this case as well. Although I do also think that it's an infection, but it could be that she's been infected by desires which are not.
That's interesting.
Stopping her from seeing properly, and I think that could be part of could be part of the dream. Interesting. Another body part is present in this as well because of the machine about smoking, and I think there was quite a strong teaching element about avoiding sinful things in this space that the dream relates to, and I think that's what it is. It's like they've got. What they're there is like, you want to not do this, not do that, not fall into this trap, not have this sin in our lives. And I was like, I know about all that stuff, but that's to do with respiration and breath and our spiritual lives and being alive in the spirit and being able to process the breath of God that we need, right? And not constricting that with sinfulness. So there's another kind of body element as well.
So now this is interesting, Heather. Interesting. I dream regularly that I can't get my iPhone to work. I think prophetic people have this thing, and I actually think it's normal in a way when we're trying to perceive the thing that God wants us to do, because that's often what I would do on my iPhone. I'd go and do research. I'd go and I'd phone my husband. There's a lot you do on your phone. So I think that could be, if you're going through, and this often happens to me, when I'm going through a period where I'm trying to perceive or understand the next thing God has or where he's leading me next, I will often have dreams of trying to get my iPhone to work. And usually it takes a little while to perceive it. And you have to just pray and keep praying. And that often is why I can't perceive the thing. Is sometimes it's actually because I'm too close to the situation. I can't perceive what God is doing next. And that's often when I dream about phones or going on my iPhone. It's because I want God to show me what it is that he has next. And I mean, I've had dreams of trying to dial on my iPhone and not being able to get through, or somebody else giving me their iPhone, or me trying to return somebody's phone to them. And I think it's to do also with the prophetic, perceiving what God's saying, also not taking on other people's prophetic stuff, in the sense of you reprocess their words, but to actually go to God directly and say, what are you saying about this subject? And so I think it's so she has an Android. Heather says she has an Android.
But if you have an Android phone and you're dreaming about an Android phone, it's probably not too significant. It's just telling you it's your phone, and the fact it's a phone is more significant. I agree with that. For you, it's often about what God wants you to do next, and that's the kind of the listening. Is like, I can't hear what's happening on the phone. If it's I can't dial out or I can't get through, then that may often be something that you kind of grasped, that there's something here, but I just can't find the words to pray about it. I don't really know what it is I need to say. It's like you often get this, don't you? And I guess I do too. You kind of like, you get that sense of like, oh my goodness, there's something in my spirit. I know that there's something here in this area of my life, in this area of the church's life, this person's life. There's something happening. I can feel this thing. I don't know what it is, what words attached to it. It's like, and you have to go through a process of going, okay, God, what are you showing me here? How do I even speak about this? Something's happening, but I don't know what it is. And that can be, I can't get through on my phone. I just don't know how to talk to you about this, Jesus.
And this is the thing about the eye, is also it's often prophetic people see things and perceive things ahead of time. And it's really interesting because in Jeremiah, God takes him and he shows him this this almond branch. And he said, what do you see, Jeremiah? And he says, I see an almond branch. And he goes, you have seen well, because I am watching over my word to perform it. And it's so interesting because the almond is the early blossomer, and actually when you look at an almond, it looks like an eye, and so that's what the almond was seen in the Hebrew. The almond would represent the prophetic. And it's interesting because I was doing some research on Aaron's rod, and actually Aaron's rod is to do with the prophetic rod, because he actually goes, when he takes his rod with Moses, he says, and you will take Aaron as your prophet, and that rod is the one that swallows the snakes up. So it's just so interesting, this thing. And so I feel like we try and perceive as prophetic people the things early, and we get a sense inside of us of something prophetic, or a change, like a discernment of something changing inside of us.
Excuse me.
And then often it's difficult then to work out what it is, because we get that feeling inside of us. And so it's that thing of seeing the prophetic and understanding things ahead of time. And I just find that quite interesting. So those are the different things. The eyes about the prophetic. I just wanted to share this thing. I know we kind of, honestly, we just get really stuck on these, but hopefully they're helping. The one dream I had was interesting because I was actually trying to catch God's eye in this dream. I was having a really difficult time, like I was saying, perceiving where he was leading us and what was going on. And I actually heard an audible voice in my dream. It was a disembodied voice saying, where is that dream? Did I copy and paste it? No, we didn't copy and paste it on our notes.
No,
it's okay. I kind of remember it. So, and in this dream, I was, oh no, sorry, that's a different dream. And in this dream, I was going out with God, and we were having a meal together, and I was really trying to understand what God was trying to say to me. And we come back home, and he was making coffee, and I looked at him, and I knew it was God the Father. I just know in dreams when God's God the Father. And I looked at him like directly. I didn't say his name or anything, but I looked at him to catch his eye, and he looked back at me, and then he responded, and he said, do you want me to make you coffee? And I said, yes, please, in the dream. It was a really powerful dream for me, because I knew I'd had an encounter with God, and he usually comes in when I'm really struggling to understand what he's saying. So that's another thing about eye, is catching God's eye and an intimacy with God.
Yeah.
So that's all about eyes. And then just to pick up on some of the comments, actually, I think it's a bit kind of earlier where Maria had actually said, thank you, the dream interpretation was actually a confirmation for her. So we're really glad. And you probably understood what that dream meant anyway, but it's nice to get a confirmation of stuff.
Also, Heather there is saying that that was actually, I think that thing about not being able to, having a prophetic sense of a thing but not being able to verbalize it, is the thing that she feels that is talking about, not being able to use her phone. And I would just add to that it's entirely possible to be able to use your phone in one circumstance but not the other. So what else is happening in the dream will clue you into the situation where the thing is, and that you can't quite verbalize, right? So I don't even know what to do, how to give as an example, because I actually don't get those dreams very often. For me, it's usually I'm in a car that's not working. That's like my kind of similar. There's a vehicle here and it's not like running correctly.
But I think that's because you are you do prophetic stuff like this, but I mean, you feel that it's a different ministry for you. I know I'm called to the prophetic, and I know I always send stuff up front, and so it always occurs more to me. Those kind of dreams are always kind of when I'm struggling to find what God's trying to say. So that's right.
So it's good. The response to that is, okay, show me more, God, show me more, and like help me to understand how to speak to this thing. I don't want to be in ignorance. I know there's a thing there. Help me to verbalize it. Give me wisdom. I love James 1:5. That's one of my absolute go-tos when it comes to asking for understanding. And one of the meanings of wisdom, the Greek that's used, is clarity. So where there's a lack of clarity, you can ask for clarity, and God, he will do it within a space of time. He'll start to help you to talk about the things that you can't talk about.
And then just for a little bit of a thing is, here's the Hebrew, if you want to go have a look at it a bit later, as to what it's the word ayin, and it's to do with seeing and perceiving. Hang on, that's mouth. We're not on that one yet. But it's it's definitely one of the words within the Hebrew that is and actually I did some of the studies on it. It's the eye, the hand, and the seed, or it's the eye and the seed. It's seeing the seed of the thing that God wants to show you. So just for those who are interested in the Hebrew, I thought I'd just share it. So, I mean, and also, you know, what's interesting is that also kind of leads us on to the other thing, which is eye and face are very similar, because when you catch the eye of God, you get the face of God.
That's right.
And the reason we're talking about face is interesting, because we've got some dreams here about faces, and so we thought we would just talk to those. And so the face of something is, well, I mean, let me just see if I can find my notes. It's the appearance or image of a thing.
Yep, that's right. So often the face has to do with and what I'm just looking at the notes here. So if you're seeing the face of something, you see the way it appears, and it can. There's a scripture there that you've got in Proverbs: as water reflects the face, so the heart reflects the true man. So there can be a correspondence between substance and appearance, but there is a difference between substance and appearance. So it often has to do with the attention, or what you see when something appears to you, right? And the dreams we have really have to do with doing something to the appearance, right? So you want to read out the first one, and we've got down in our notes here.
Yeah, so Monas. Oh, actually, let me talk about this one. A friend had sent a little while ago, and I thought I'd add this because it is quite interesting. They had a dream about somebody throwing acid in their face. Now, that is a very interesting dream, because if somebody's thrown acid in your face, they're trying to deface you, basically, right. Or they're trying to affect your actual face or damage your face so that other people will perceive you in a different way. So what do you think?
Yeah, this I mean, you just think about the way I mean, they've made the news in the last few years, especially in this country. Acid attacks, and especially on women, and there are terrible crimes, like really abhorrent, actually, because it's usually somebody who is jealous, aggrieved, or obsessive about that person, and they feel rejected, whether they are or not, usually because they are obsessive and like controlling, and they throw acid in somebody's face to permanently disfigure them, so that when anybody else looks at that person, all they'll see is the damage, right? And so that's what's trying to be done here. Somebody is trying to slander that person in such a terrible way that from that point onwards they'll become like a cautionary tale. So it'll be like, oh, when somebody looks at you, they'll think, oh yeah, that's that person who that happens to, and they won't see anything else. They won't be able to see who you are as a person outside of that, and they certainly won't be able to listen with the breath and go, oh, I understand what God's doing in that person, because that's all they'll see. So that's what, it's a terrible thing, and that's what that speaks to.
And
I
sometimes
think
leaders do that. They'll actually go and speak to other people about why you left the church, or why you did something in the church, or why you did a certain thing. It's often words that are slander.
Acidic slander, like, biting,
acidic
damaging,
words.
toxic slander. That's right.
And so that's a very interesting and so Mona Smith also had a dream which was interesting.
I'll read this one out, right? So I dreamt of 2 ladies that covered my face with a mask. The mask were those that actors use in the movies to make them look older. They were in such a hurry, they couldn't really come close to me to put it on properly. I was just standing and trying to figure out what on earth was going on.
Yeah, so I mean, they're trying to put a mask on your face. Basically, they're trying to give you an identity that is an incorrect identity of who you are. So, and they're trying to make you look older, which is interesting. I don't know if it's in a good sense of looking older, because if older can be wiser, but
it can,
so it's like they're in such a hurry they can't get close enough to me to put it on properly. I'm just standing and trying to figure out what's going on. So I don't know if you practically, what do you think somebody's done in this dream?
I think it's talking about at least two other people, and I think actually they're trying to probably pull you in to, well, I don't know, actually, I can't say that. It's a couple of other people. What they're trying to do is put another appearance on you, which makes you either look more mature, which would be, we're trying to recruit you for our group. We know you're not quite ready for it, but actually we want to make you look like you are and look like you're kind of older. So that would be that would be sort of a more benign intention. Or it's something, if it's like a bullying type of thing, then it would be you're being ganged up on. People are trying to make you look like you're acting out of the old person, put off the old man and take on Christ. So they're trying to get you to look like, and this happens in churches as well, where people will, if they don't like what you have to say, they'll try and deconstruct you and make it look like you're talking out of your own carnality, flesh and desire, rather than, you kind of like, no, I really believe this is God, he's saying this, So that would be the more malicious interpretation of that dream for me. But they're going very quickly, right? They're in a real hurry, so they're not doing a very thorough job of this, and as a result, it's not really sticking, which means that they're probably just like done it very. It's been a few conversations. It's not an orchestrated campaign to make sure this thing happens. It's done quite quickly, which makes me think actually it's probably more likely to be benign. They're just trying to make you look more mature, and if they can't make it stick with you, they'll move on to somebody who maybe they can.
Very interesting dream. So let me just go over some of the scriptures. Actually, the one about as water reflects the face, so the heart reflects the true man, is actually Proverbs 27 verse 19. So I don't know if we mentioned that. And one of the other scriptures that I found, which I actually think for me is also reflects back to that dream of trying to catch God's eye. But what I was trying to do is actually catch his face. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get him to look at you with his face, and then face to face encounters with God are about really seeing him and knowing him, who he is. It's interesting because Mike Bickle's been through a series of really interesting things about intimacy with Jesus and actually understanding who Jesus is. And he says, as my Father has loved me, so I have loved you. And he said, like, the implication and the power of understanding that is about understanding face to face who Jesus is and understanding his love for us. And so I think that for me is one of the main, the main thing for me is the intimacy with Jesus is one of the most important things of the prophetic, and that is seeking out his face. And so that is Psalm 105 verse 4. Seek out the Lord and his strength, seek his face always. So there's a difference between seeking him and his strength. You get the things he does for you, but actually the important thing is to seek his face and actually having face-to-face communion with him. And I love that, you know.
It's interesting to add to that. One of my favorite Psalms is one thing I have desired, that Psalm 27, one thing I've desired, that will I seek, that I may dwell all my days in the presence of the Lord,
Yes.
to behold his beauty and inquire in his temple.
Yes.
And so there's a parallel between those two things, right? The strength is the inquiring in his temple, and we do go do that, like, help me out, can you do this, how must I do this? That's all the enquiry stuff. But there's that other side of our life, which is just seeking out his face, going on a dinner date, like looking into his eyes. Do you know what I mean?
It was such an interesting dream, because I was like a bit taken aback, because we were sitting at this and having dinner together, and that is face-to-face communion, and we were talking about stuff, and the waitress comes and she says, what can I get you to eat? So he says, you know, I have a lot of decisions I have to make in life. There's a lot of things I have to do. Why don't you surprise me? Just bring me whatever you think is. And I feel sometimes God's like that, and his character's like that. He just wants us to surprise him and bring him something that we've created and we cooked, and we just to bring him. And that's what he said. And I was like, you're a brave man in the dream. I was like, you're brave doing that. Because I don't generally just let people make decisions for me. So it was a really interesting dream. And it is, anyway,
it's interesting, isn't it? God does that, like with us, with angels that he's created. He wants us to surprise him, even though we can't surprise him. He wants us to, like, you know, he knows what we're going to bring him, but he wants us to, like, bring it out of ourselves and be creative, you know.
And so I think Renee here, I'm just going to pick up some of the comments. Renee has said connectivity to God, or line of communication to God. I think she's talking about the eye. Yeah. So that is good. And that's ultimately the thing that's really, really. And then also Heather said, thanks so much. I've been feeling like that in the prophetic training I'm doing in the phone dreams coincide. So that's brilliant. And then this is interesting, because it's back onto the face. Francene said she had a dream where her cheeks were slashed. Now, what would that mean?
Again, it's similar. It's violence. Slashing is cutting. Cutting usually is a blade, and a blade
Cutting
usually
words.
talks about cutting words.
Yes, to your face.
To your face. Cutting words.
So they said it to you, to your face, cutting words.
And it's like, we talk about slapping the cheek, right? But we also, the cheek is the place of greeting. Greet each other with a kiss. This is not a lips kiss. This is a cheek kiss, right? And it's biblical. So it's putting a cutting word in you, so you won't want to greet people and other people won't want to greet you, which would be similar to the defacing. It's like people are going to look at you, they're going to see damage, they're not going to want to greet you. It's like a cutting off, but it's permanent. It's like they want to leave a scar, right? So it's malicious.
So, I mean, in the response to a dream like that would be, Lord, I pray that you show me and you help me see what this is and stop it at the pass. That would be a good response in a dream.
I thank you for your protection. I'd be like in the Psalms, David talks about that, like, you are my strength, you're my refuge, you're my safe place. You go out before me, you protect me before and behind. These are all themes in the Psalms.
And Renee actually is interesting. I think she's speaking about acid here as a very malicious, full of hatred and harboring offense attack. Right. So, those are very interesting. I don't know. Oh, hopefully you managed to not let that happen, that happen to you.
That's a historic dream that's passed. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So Heather says the religious spirit was telling me I wasn't praying properly. So
this grave a great lift. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
There's no formula in the prophetic, is there? Actually, the most heartfelt prayer is usually the one that's like the best one, right? The one that's the way to pray. It's like from the deepest place you can find. And
probably that's what she was doing, an authentic place she was praying out of. And it's a lie, you know, if you're praying out of that authentic place and it's heart-to-heart communion with God, then it's really, really relevant. So, yes. Now we seem to have run out of time once again.
Can we just do one more? Because there's a person who was quite keenly looking last week and we'll probably look at it again this week, to do with the internal organs, the wombs. Can we just deal with that one before? Or do you want to leave that?
No, look, we can talk about that. But it is interesting because somebody had sent us now I'd be loved to hear what you guys think. If anybody's here and they feel they have this two wombs, what would two wombs mean? So it's a very interesting, and it's interesting because she'd also had the sound of velcro.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody knows, or
audible experience,
audible experience of the sound of velcro. So my thoughts on these were the sound of velcro. The interesting is the velcro originally comes from these a guy who used to walk in the Alps, and there were these seeds or these little weeds, burdock, and they would stick to everything. And he realized that he could probably use that, a hair and a hook system, to close things or stick things, you know, and fasten things. So that's what it is, and that's how velcro was originally created. And so my sense was in this, the velcro is about something that's been, the sound of velcro ripping open is very loud. Obviously when it gets closed you can't hear it, but when it opens, when you hear the sound of velcro, and velcro, it's a very distinctive sound. It goes rip. I feel it's God loosening something, and it's really interesting because I think it does coincide with the two wombs, which is about productivity and actually being able to, I'm going to let you, I also want to hear what you have to say in this, but we thought we would just speak to this because we really meant to do this a few weeks ago, and we'll come back to some of these other dream elements like mouth and ears and all that stuff, but I thought we would just deal with this really quickly. Womb, as in the womb where you carry a baby. Yes. The matrix of the womb, the woman's womb.
Uterus, I think was the word she used.
Because Renee said wounds or wombs.
That's a good question.
Did I not say it clearly? Wombs.
It's the second one of those two.
Yeah, wombs. So she has two wombs, but so I feel I feel it's Stephanie Wainwright, and I feel that what God's speaking to is a loosening of a thing. Something that has held fastened tight, and there's a ripping of this into a loosing and a releasing in a thing. And so I like it. There we go. So Heather Lamont says it's double blessing.
And it is, and this is kind of like my sort of take on it, is it is a double blessing, but it's a very specific type of double blessing. When you talk about double blessing, often that in terms of, let's say, wombs, children, being pregnant means that there's something, a child is a work or a ministry. It's the continuance of your own house or the continuance of your house outside of your house. So it's talking about a ministry or something that you're going to do to, if you run a business, build your own business up or something like that. Having the double blessing comes two ways, right? Double blessing in the traditional sense is twins, right? Which is one womb. So it's two that are the same, but that twins often comes with problems, and you get that Jacob and Esau, Perez and I can't remember the name of his twin brother.
That was such an name. That is so interesting.
A thread tied. One comes out, puts his hand out first, so the midwife ties a red scarlet thread around his wrist, but it's actually the other. Perez is the firstborn, and he's the one that is mentioned in the genealogy of Boaz, the line of David, and the line of Jesus.
But his brother tries to come out first.
Twins are a double blessing, but they often fight each other for resources and position. And that's Jacob and Esau. That's like the message of twins. But this is different from that. This is two wombs. So it means you can carry two children simultaneously, but they're not going to fight for resources with each other. They're not going to fight for position. And because of that, they could be entirely different things. So it may just be that they're not going to fight with each other and compete like twins can, but it may also be that they're completely different things. So it could be that you could give, like, this is just, I'm not saying this is just an example. You could be developing a prophetic ministry and an evangelistic ministry at the same time, or something like that. Two completely separate things, linked but separate, and they can grow at the same time. So that's an amazing dream, actually, speaking about what God wants to do and grow in you and growth grow out into the world.
And
through
it's interesting because Renee Eber says wombs speak about productivity, and I agree. That's what I said. It's about productivity, you know. And it's interesting because the womb is where we carry the seed of everything. So it's where we carry our daughters, our sons, and it's the seed that God gives you, that He implants inside of you, and then you have the capacity to carry seed and the things that the promises, and the seed is about promises. So it's a good dream, and I feel that it's the velcro is related to a loosing to productivity. So I do believe they are.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because velcro is it's also something that's designed as a clasp. I mean, velcro is always there to fasten something until the time you need to loose it. So this has been, it's not accidental. It's not something that's it's something that's been done by design for this time. Yeah,
I love this. So we've got everybody else interpreting this dream. This is fantastic. This is how it should be done. So even Maria Bevan says, yes, I'm thinking of double blessings. For all the shame, I give you double blessings. The tomb become a womb in the Lord Jesus and His victory over death.
I like
we
that.
like that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
That's Maria. It doesn't come up on here. But
it is Maria. It says Facebook user, but that's Maria Bevan.
Yeah.
And it's instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. Instead of your disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance, and you will inherit a double portion in your land, and everlasting joy will be yours. So Stephanie, I hope that is very encouraging.
Yes.
And the people on this group are amazing. So Renee says twins complement each other. They can also become competitive. And that's exactly. So they do fight for resources in the womb. So that's fantastic. Well, I do apologize. We still have, John, you said we're not going to get through all of this. I said, yes, we're going to get through it. I'm determined we're going to get through it, but clearly we're not. So I think there might be a body part 3. But we still want to do a mentoring. And so my apologies, guys. This is so interesting. These body things are so interesting. But there's so much more. We've got such interesting stuff to say about the mouth, about teeth. Teeth is really interesting. Hair, ears. So we're going to talk about these. And then the stomach. That is such an interesting dream. Oh my gosh, that is so interesting. And blood is interesting. Yes, Renee, I think part 3 is on the card. Oh dear. So I just didn't want to rush through stuff, because I just feel like we need to give it the time that it is. And we thank everybody for all your contributions. We love it. We appreciate you so much. Heather Mon says, thanks so much, folks. No, thank you so much, Heather, for all your contributions. Renee, thank you. She says part 3. And so we're going to end this broadcast, and we'll be back again next week. And we look forward to seeing you again. And let us know if you've had a dream about some of those other ones that I've named, like ears or mouth or anything in that. Just let us know, and we can share, interpret it on those. I could do a poll.
Or we could do a post, can't we? And put a call out for specific subjects.
And then we'll hopefully we will finish part 3.
Yeah.
But we hope it's been helpful. And Maria says thank you so much, and we really appreciate you joining us, Maria. And thank you so much for sharing. And Nancy Brown, I'm sorry we didn't greet you in the beginning, but you are so welcome. It was lovely to have you with us this morning, and we appreciate you also very much. Francene says that was a great session. Thanks, Francene. We appreciate it, and we appreciate everybody's contribution.
Yeah, thanks.
So we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you again next week for a part 3.
Yeah, look forward to it. See you then. Bye.